I just welcome everyone who's joining early, and we've got a few more minutes before we start, so I'll just allow everyone to join. Rosa, apologies. I was hoping we could join earlier, but the system didn't seem to allow that. But I hope you're all. Are you all good?
Can you hear me? I can't see myself, so.
Okay, I can see and hear you very well.
Okay, good. You know that whole thing that you don't know if you exist unless somebody sees you, so.
The world we're living in. Hi, Louis.
It's so true.
We've got six attendees on at the moment. We'll probably start about 2 minutes past when hopefully we'll get more on. So
Hopefully we will.
Rosa, you'll be able to share your screen, so that's fine. But I'll start with the introductions.
Okay. Yeah, I won't share my screen until you introduce me. How's that?
That's great.
Tim, I'll take myself off video and just come back if needed. If that's okay.
Thank you.
Who are you? Who are you?
Oh, hi, Rosa. I'm Louis Worsterman. I'm a fellow trustee with Tim of the 1% Safer Foundation. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you.
But I'm just here if for any reason Tim's connection drops, then I'll just step in as kind of as extra host. But I'm sure you won't need me. So
Okay, all right.
I'm just the spare set of wheels.
It's always good to have a backup. How has the attendance been on the other webinars?
Been good. I think we had about 70 yesterday, which was good.
70. Ooh,
yeah,
that's nice.
So those we have already. So we've got eight already listening to us in the background. Hi everyone. We'll be kicking off in 2 or 3 minutes. So just we'll wait for more to join. I expect a rush in about 2 minutes, hopefully.
Oh, well, that would be nice. And hello, everyone that's on there. I'm in Long Beach, California. Where's everybody calling in from? Could you put it in the chat so we get a sense of?
I'm hoping the chat is enabled for everyone. So if someone wants to perhaps, there we go. We got some from Scotland.
Yay. Scotland, how's the movement for independence going? I've been watching a series called The Diplomat, and takes place in London, and the Scots are planning a separation from England.
We've got Simon from Hereford. Got Tara from Saskatchewan in Canada. There we go.
Oh, we'll have the Commonwealth represented.
Louis from the South Coast. I'm from Liverpool, if anyone was wondering where I'm Botswana. Oh, this is great. This is the global world we live in, isn't it?
Yes, Barcelona. Love it. I love Barcelona.
So for those who've just joined, we're just going to give it a few more minutes. As usual with Zoom webinars, we like to give everyone some chance to join, those joining a bit late. Hi, Brian from Florida.
Florida, yay, the US is represented.
Oh, Dallas.
Dallas, all right.
We really are international.
Texas, yeah, Texas is its own country. I don't know if you knew that, Tim.
I didn't know that. So you started talking Scotland as being independent, and Texas is now as well.
Oh yeah, it's a time for independence. Well, Texas has been working on that for quite a while.
I'm sure. And I am conscious that due to the time of day, we are probably unable to be joined by too many of our colleagues and friends over in Asia Pacific, but we are recording this session, so I'm hoping that many of you who are probably asleep at the moment live will be watching this recording back in due course. Hi, Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
Hello, Andrew.
Andrew's an old colleague of mine, so I specifically.
Oh, it's not Andrew Hopkins. Okay.
Andrew Hornby. Yeah, he's a good friend. So someone else from South Africa. Hi, Donovan.
So are we getting some new countries in there?
Yeah, we're certainly Africa, Europe, Africa, and the Americas at the moment, which is great. Anyone want to? We've got nearly 30 on at the minute now. So if anyone wants to give us a different country, that would be fantastic. If anyone's from anywhere else.
I wonder if anyone's there from Latin America.
Yeah, so there's an interesting one. Anyone from Latin America? Another UK. India. Hi, Lois. That's fantastic. So it's a bit late in India, but very pleased for you to join. And Jörg from Germany has joined.
Wonderful.
And so here we go. And we've got William from Brazil, Sao Paulo.
Hello, William.
Another Canadian. We are really we're all over the world. This is fantastic.
I love Zoom. That was one of the blessings from COVID-19. All of a sudden, I had friends all over the world.
It was amazing, wasn't it? Absolutely. And then being able to do these sorts of webinars to so many people around the world rather than just those restricted to attending in person. So it's fantastic. We're at 3 minutes past the hour, everyone, for those who are on the hour. Some are on half hour probably. We'll probably give it 2 more minutes. We're on 32 attendees, which is fantastic. Perhaps give it a couple more minutes, Rosa, and then I'll make a start.
All righty. Well, I can ask people, you've written in where you are geographically, and a lot of this webinar is going to be about the importance of relationships and emotions. So if you feel up to it, if you could enter one word into the chat that describes how you feel today. Maybe it's curious, maybe it's stressed because something just happened at home, or maybe it's anxious. Just put something in there. Tim, could you put in curious for me?
I certainly can.
Thank you. And maybe one for yourself. How are you feeling this moment?
I'll read them. We have a busy, we have a curious from you. We have an exhausted at the end of the working day. We have a hopeful. We have a cold from Scotland. We have an optimistic. We have an intrigued. I'll add mine, which is apprehensive, because when you're hosting one of these things, you're never quite sure how it's all going to go. We've got an awake, and I'm frustrated. Frustrated. Still energized is Mark. These are great, everyone. Keep going.
Keep going. Yeah. This, by the way, this is a great check-in for any meeting. If you start a meeting and say, okay, before we start, I just want one word from each person in this room, how you're feeling, you would be amazed how it changes the tone, because right away you brought in the whole human aspect.
We've got a grateful, a captivated, and we haven't even started yet, so that's fantastic to me. Well, Simon, I'm glad you're captivated already.
That's what emotions do. They captivate us.
Absolutely. William's curious.
Excellent.
All right. And we've got a relaxed Sabrina from France. Welcome, Sabrina. We're our first French attendee, and she's relaxed, which is fantastic.
Oh, that's great. Great. Okay. Well, it sounds like we have we have some tired people, but we also have people, but they're here, right? So welcome.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here, even though it's the end of an exhausting day. And thank you all for bringing your open minds and curious minds to this.
Right, I think we are ready to make a start. So if you allow me, I will share my screen and welcome everyone to what is now our second presentation seminar as part of our Live and Direct series 2023, as part also coinciding, of course, with the International Safety Day and I think International Safety Week. It's fair to say now that this week has been becoming. So on behalf of 1% Safer, and I'll talk a little bit more about 1% Safer in a minute, but we welcome you and thank you for joining us today. Obviously thank our sponsors who've allowed us to put on this event this week. So Quentic, Ecoline, Cority, and our media sponsor, Saferpedia. So before we invite Rosa to talk to us, just want to give those of you who perhaps don't know too much about 1% Safer, I'll just give you a very brief overview. So my name's Tim Eldridge. I'm one of the trustees of the 1% Safer Foundation. 1% Safer Foundation is a charity which was founded back in 2020 by our chair of the board, Professor Dr. Andrew Sharman, who I'm sure many of you will know. Andrew started the movement as a response, I think, to some extent to the pandemic, but also that it was an opportunity to really look at safety in a different way, particularly as we were all perhaps a little bit more rooted at home than we could have been otherwise. And one of the things that was very clear to us all was that the number of workplace deaths related to safety and health was still way too high. And we knew that if we just made 1%, the world 1% safer, that would make a huge impact on several thousand families a year and have a huge impact on society in general. And the first thing we did as a foundation is we invited over 150 leading health and safety thinkers, academics and practitioners to just write one paragraph or two paragraphs on what they felt a 1% safer world will look like. And at the end of that, after a few months and a lot of hard work by many people, this book arrived, which is the 1% Safer book, which, as you, because my screen's, you probably can't see, but it's a 250-page book, as I say, about 150 articles in it around 1% safer, and articles all about how we can make the world world safer through using, whether you want to talk about the marginal gains theory or the Kaizen theory or nudge theory, but it's very much about understanding how we as practitioners can help the world be 1% safer. As a foundation, we're a charity who've been running for over 3 years now, and we do a number of things. So the book we sell, and I will make no apology about promoting the book to you all at the end of this webinar, but also so the proceeds and the resources we get from those books as a charity, we donate to a number of different causes, whether that be to individual health and safety practitioners as grants to help them either because they're struggling financially, and that was particularly a case during the pandemic, or because they're in a part of the world where it's very difficult to get the resources that they need to be able to deliver the work, the valuable work that they need to do to make their workplace or their community 1% safer. We also donate to particular causes as well. And if there's a specific cause, we invite bids from organizations as well as individuals for grants, and we will provide grants to organizations, again, that meet the philosophy of our 1% safer principles. So that's what we're all about. And one of the things that we're really keen to do is continue what we did with the book, which is sharing thoughts, advice, guidance, and pearls of wisdom from leading safety and health professionals around the world. And that's what this week is all about. And so without further ado, I am going to hand over to Rosa. You do have a Q&A function, which you're able to use. So if you wish to ask questions as we go along, please put those in the Q&A, and I will keep an eye on those, and I'll invite Rosa if we have some good questions that seem at the right time. I'll put those to you as well. So without further ado, I will stop sharing and hand over to Rosa and say thank you, and look forward to hearing from you.
All right, well, thank you so much, Tim. I'm really happy to be here with everyone. And I did, in case you missed it, we asked everybody to write in the chat your geographical location. And while you're there, one word that describes how you're feeling now. And we got some really great feelings all the way from intrigued and curious to exhausted, because it's the end of a long day. So please join in, because this exercise is going to become an important part of the lesson that I'm hoping to get across on the importance of emotions on how our performance. So in my new book, Health and Safety as a Leadership Strategy, it's going to be released on May 13th, 2023. My intention was to reimagine a role for health and safety professionals based on how many of us see ourselves, which is basically as leaders and part of a caring profession. The book includes quite a bit of research as well as quotes from safety advisors and employees indicating the key points that I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to now share my screen. Hopefully everything will work smoothly.
That's working perfectly, Rosa. Fabulous. We can see it. Thank you.
Okay. Only thing is I didn't have it on slide number 1. So let me see what I can do here. There, go back here. I was practicing this morning, Tim. Here we go. All right. So I want to go over the key points as we before we get started. And the first one is that COVID and the Great Resignation alerted us to that we are in danger of losing valuable health and safety talent due to burnout and stress. And a lot of that is caused by a lack of inclusion and psychological safety. A great many safety and health advisors talk to me about their frustration in this regard. In fact, 53% of health and safety advisors are thinking about quitting, and this matches the US statistics for knowledge workers. Big companies like McKinsey that have access to thousands and thousands of workers, and what they're thinking came up with the statistic during COVID. So it's pretty urgent. The next key point is that social systems trump technical systems. Health and safety, the education that folks receive at university, and even the pressures at work are to focus on the technical systems. But in fact, the truth is that social systems are more important because they override rules and procedures. That means trust, relationships, and communication play a stronger role than rules and procedures. Unfortunately, the education for managers and folks in safety is shockingly absent of how to work with people. Safety is a people business, and all organizations are people businesses. So why are we still neglecting that area? And chapter 8 in my book is completely dedicated to that topic, and I'm hoping that it may even be used in the curriculum going forward for young safety aspiring safety professionals. Finally, the role that health and safety personnel played during COVID-19 revealed the invisible leadership role that health and safety always holds in organizations. The unspoken truth is that most seasoned health and safety pros see themselves as leaders. Now, here's something to think about: the value that health and safety brings to organizations. What is the value that we bring? And you're going to see some statistics scrolling across the screen here from the International Labor Organization and the World Health Organization, as well as research reports that have linked safety to improvements in organizational performance. So this is a participative webinar, so I would like you to share with me how effective are these statistics in getting the resources that you need for health and safety. Please enter it in the chat box, and Tim will read some of them to me. Do you find that informing management of the concrete benefits of health and safety helps you to gain resources? Any responses, Tim?
So we're going to know, short and sweet from someone so far.
No.
Is no. Well, for some thoughts, please.
Yeah.
In the chat.
It may be a shocking question, right? Because in my experience, most of my colleagues, especially younger colleagues in health and safety, are always looking for those business benefits so that they can tell their managers how important health and safety is.
We've got a couple more points here. So one comment is that the statistics are often based on large companies and are not relevant or economies of scale to micro and small medium enterprises. That's one. Another one, in agreement, there isn't much consideration for statistics. Next comment, it will really help to make safety performance tangible in business terms above lagging indicators such as LTA, lost time accidents.
Yes, it certainly would. And you would think that statistics like lowering absenteeism and improving morale would hold sway. But we're here to talk about emotions and relationships for a reason, and that is that emotions and relationships override logic, systems, and rules. So I want you to try and experiment right now. You entered a word, hopefully, into the chat to describe how you felt in that moment. Go inside and feel what you are feeling now. Has it shifted? Is it the same? Please enter your experience into the chat. Maybe at the beginning you were optimistic and now you're not so optimistic. Or maybe you're even more optimistic. You have to participate in this exercise in order to believe in the power of emotions. I'm sorry, Tim, I interrupted you.
That's quite all right. We've got two curiouses, one who's actually moved to curious. We have someone who's more connected. Come on, people, don't be shy. How are you feeling?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to help you a little bit more now. All right. This is an important exercise that has changed my life. And it's very, very simple. When my stress levels go up, I take a deep breath, I hold it for 5 seconds, and I let it go. So I would like for all of you to try that right now. Let's take in a deep breath. Hold it. And let go. Okay. One more time. Do an internal scan. And now I want you to think of one thing that brought you joy in the last 24 hours. On my monitor, I have a picture of my 2 lovely nieces and the last time we got together, which was so much fun. And every time I look at that, I think, you know, I'm not alone. I have these wonderful people in my life. So I want you to draw in that moment. Have you got it? Keep breathing. Notice how you feel. Have you shifted? Please write in the chat if you have shifted to what. And share with us, because as you share your emotions, they are contagious. And this will happen in the workplace as well. The act of breathing deeply and focusing on a positive emotion changes your brain chemistry. And that's what's happening all day long as you interact with people. So
we've got some wonderful responses here, Rosa. We've got a lot related to family, people who've spent time with their family, their siblings, their wives, their children. A really interesting one, someone who was energized and was joyed by, they saw a deer cross the road when they were driving to work. How good's that? And someone said son, which not all of us are gifted, lucky enough to have, but Sabrina certainly has a son. So some really interesting ones.
See, and when you read that one, Tim, about the deer because I've driven in the country and that's happened to me. And I do remember like the spontaneous moment of joy, connecting with nature, feeling special. Like not everybody has had that experience, right? Yeah. So what does all of this talk about emotions have to do with safety? All right. The essential difference between emotion and reason is that emotion leads to action, while reason leads to conclusions. I want to let that sink in there. Have you ever felt like you're always talking about the same thing over and over in meetings, and no decision is arrived at, no action is taken? If you want to touch people or influence them, you have to work at the emotional level. And one of the principal ways to work and to influence people at the emotional level is to make them feel included. So hopefully technology is with me, because I have a video here that I want you to watch. It's a 2-minute video explaining the neuroscience behind psychological safety.
It's more than just a metaphor. And we ask people to. So about a decade ago, Naomi Eisenberger and I set out to test whether social pain is more than just a metaphor. And we asked people to lay in an MRI scanner, so we were taking pictures of their brain, while they played what they thought was a simple ball tossing game with 2 other people that they thought were also in scanners. And if you were in the game, you'd control this little hand at the bottom of the screen. And whenever the ball came to you, you would simply press a button to decide who the ball was going to go to next. Really boring stuff. Not a very exciting game, but then something interesting happens. The other 2 players who were actually controlling stop throwing you the ball forever. You never get the ball again for the rest of the game. And what we found was sort of 2 things that we thought were pretty fascinating when we looked at the brains of these individuals. So when we looked at what was going on when these folks were being rejected, we saw that the same brain regions that register the distress of physical pain, how much you're sort of bothered by some physical pain experience, were also more active when people were left out of the game compared to when they had been included. Moreover, the more an individual told us they felt bad about being left out of the game, so the more social distress they experienced, the more these responses were sort of amplified in those particular individuals. And if that doesn't persuade you that social pain is real pain, and I know it won't for all of you, consider this. What we in the US call Tylenol, what you call paracetamol here, makes these effects go away. So you can give people paracetamol and it will actually make the social pain effects go away in terms of people's experience and also in terms of the neural responses that we see. So the same painkiller that you take for your headache can help with your heartache as well. And I think this leads, pretty clearly to the conclusion that social pain is real pain. So it's not that a broken heart is the same as a broken leg, but we also don't think a stomach ache is the same as arthritis. There's different kinds of pain. We think of lots of different kinds of pain. And I think that this data suggests that social pain should be awarded membership in the pain club.
There is no difference between physical and psychological injury. And in fact, psychological injury can lead to physical injury because you can lose situational awareness. When you're under stress, you tend to miss things that you would ordinarily notice. So psychological safety means you feel included and you belong. And that is what makes it safe to express disagreement or new ideas. One research provider, UKG, which is the leading provider of HR services, found that 88% of employees felt included in companies that financially outperformed others, and only 62% of employees in underperforming companies felt included. direct link between inclusion and organizational performance. By the way, that includes safety. More data linking a sense of belonging to results. This is a study of 1,789 employees across diverse industries. 56% had an increase in job performance, 50% drop in turnover, 75 reduction in sick days. So let's look at who feels included according to the McKinsey research here in the US. Do you notice a pattern here? Let's hear some comments in the chat box. You guys help me to analyze the situation here. Who feels included, and why do you think the hierarchy works in this manner? I need your critical thinking ability here. Who feels included and why? Why is there this social hierarchy? This is in all countries, by the way. It's not just the United States. Do we have any comments, Tim?
We do. So with senior leaders, because they make the decisions and they have the say in most things. That's the theme coming out really, that because senior leaders, they have more decision-making ability and the more influence, and they're in charge.
Yes, and it's interesting because autonomy is one of the key needs for psychological safety. The more autonomy you have, the more psychologically safe you feel.
Simon makes a good point here. So the people running the game feel most included in the game.
Yeah. And now the next study here has a different look from a racial and sexual preference perspective. Who tends to feel more comfortable disagreeing with a common viewpoint? Who's going to speak up? And are there any comments, Tim?
There's just a comment about that they're surprised the LGBTQ. I'm guessing they're surprised that's low, or Mark, is that he's surprised it's how high it is? I'm not sure which way that was. Perhaps you just want to clarify. He's surprised how high the LGBTQ one is.
Yes, and remember in the previous one, they were also high.
Yeah.
My thesis or thinking behind that is that they have a community, a positive community around them. So they create their psychological safety within those parameters.
And we've got another really important comment that people in the majority tend to feel safe in speaking up.
Yep, there is security in numbers, isn't there? And this speaks to the very basic need of human beings to be part of a group, to feel secure that they're not going to get ostracized or not going to be kicked out of the tribe, which comes all the way from our caveman days when if you were thrown out of the tribe, you were dead meat because you would freeze to death, you couldn't find enough food, and you would be eaten by predators. So this is all in the unconscious, and we're not thinking about it consciously, but it operates unconsciously 100% of the time. This hierarchy right here. The research in my book points heavily to the loss of human potential that these conditions generate. And I am a woman of color, so from personal experience, I know how exhausting it is to have to think and rethink how to bring up topics, how to bring an idea in a way that doesn't disturb the manager or the outspoken person, because if you get the wrong person angry at you, everything falls apart. I'm an expert strategist due to years and years and years of having to go around the obstacles. But look at Black women down at the bottom. And here in the United States during COVID and then the election, I participated a great deal. And I saw that Black women were amazing leaders and very powerful, very outspoken. And they did turn the election around here in the USA. And I had some candid conversations, which I'm going to have with you right now, because when I look at my own demographic, Latinx, we're conditioned socially to be submissive. And so that's a whole nother level that I find that I have to jump over my conditioning in order to speak up. And do Black women speak up? Yes, they do. But what we're not taking into consideration is the mental cost, the stress, the burnout. All women are stressed out, but Black and Latina women are more stressed out than anyone else. And you know who else feels at the bottom of this particular paradigm here? It's health and safety advisors. In my interviews, so many people told me they feel unheard, unappreciated, and that's the primary reason why they're thinking of quitting. So that's what's happening here because of this dynamic. And I guess we can ask ourselves, well, as a healthcare advisor, I don't have, or safety and health advisor, I don't have a lot of power. How can I influence this situation?
Got a question from Adam, Rosa, who the question was, is it a fact that most senior leaders in the USA are white males? So having senior leaders at the top, does that corroborate what you had on your slide?
I don't really understand the question. Could we try that?
Adam, do you want to perhaps clarify a little bit more? Perhaps we'll come back to that, Rosa. So Adam, if you want to just be a bit...
Well, try reading the question to me again.
So his question is, are most senior leaders in the USA white males? So having senior leaders at the top corroborates the second slide.
Yeah. Yes, in the US, the majority are still white males.
That's Adam's clarified. Yeah, was that the case? And you've So
yeah.
That's no problem, Adam. He said thank you for clarifying.
And Tim, tell me if I'm wrong, but when we see the keynote speakers in health and safety, what color and who are they usually?
I think it's fair to say, if you look at any of the major conferences, safety conferences around the world, you will have a majority of white men, increasing number of females, which is good, but by no means enough. And diversity-wise, further diversity, no, it's improving, but nowhere near where it needs to be.
No, and even in the profession, we have improved a lot. I think we're up to maybe 30% females in the profession. But when I first entered in 1993, if there was 1 or 2 women in the room, then I didn't feel alone. 2 or 3 women, what do they say? 1 plus God is the majority, right? But it was a lonely place. And speaking up about things like we have to have trust in the workplace was very, very difficult. And because I was bringing in a female perspective, not only that, but I was bringing in the woman of color perspective, which is that there's some people that we have to open the way before they will participate. We can't just expect them to speak up. And that goes to this slide right here, where more than 60% of medical errors are the result of people around the doctors not speaking up. There's another one that says that 58% of the nurses have admitted they would not speak up to doctors. This is a silence that's killing people in the world of healthcare, and it's killing people everywhere, because we have created the conditions where only certain people can speak their mind or contribute without first having to go through a million hoops to get there. So we have a global pandemic of exclusion and disregard in the workplace. 86% of workers feel they are not heard fairly or equally. And again, this was a 4,000 person survey. So, as I was saying before, improving the level of inclusion by listening to workers presents a huge opportunity for health and safety advisors. As you can see, in the US, only 3 in 10 workers feel their opinions count. If you could double that to 6 in 10, imagine the benefits. Reductions in turnover, reductions in incidents, and increases in productivity. So the question is, ladies and gentlemen, what are the resources that you need to make people feel included? If there's any comments in there, please share.
So at the moment, we're waiting for the answers to that question. But before we do, Steve asks, is there differences in some of the numbers and results you've been sharing geographically? Does it change whereabouts you are in the world?
No, not substantially. No, because if I ask these questions in Africa, because everything is relative, I'm sure they would be even lower, right? Depends on the culture, because some cultures actually frown upon employees speaking out openly, whereas in the United States, we say that we want to hear what people say, even though we don't support it.
So people, do you have any thoughts on the resources you would need? Here we go. People need to be coached to have courage to stand for what they feel is important. Awareness of psychological safety is important. And then we've got empathy as a resource, which I think.
Yes, that's an important one. Yeah. And can I tie on to empathy, listening? I want you to participate in this exercise for a minute here. Think of a time when your boss or somebody that you admired made you feel included. Just take a deep breath like I showed you before. And go back to that event. What was the situation? What did they say and do? Do you remember how you felt? Do you remember the impact? And now please write in the chat, what was that person doing that made you feel that way?
While we just wait for you to come through, Rosa, it's interesting if you spare me, I can indulge in just giving one of my answers, because I've just started a new job with a new organization. And within the second week, my boss, who doesn't even live in this country, came over and spent time with me to make me feel welcome into the organization. And that's never happened to me before, so that made me feel very positive about my organization. Anyway, enough about me.
Wait.
Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so what were the key things there? Was it that it was one-on-one, face-to-face?
One-on-one, face-to-face, outside the workplace. So he took me for lunch, which was nice. And it was time, and it was it wasn't checking phone, email, things going off. It was very much 100% dedicated listening time.
That feels good. So what is everyone else saying?
So we've got people talking about the person who trusted them, cared about them, respected them. They actually listened to my point of view, even though they didn't agree with me, and that made me feel heard. Someone has regular chats with their person that says that if he says he wants a chat with coffee, you know, it's a friendly chat. If it's just a chat, then it will be a difficult chat. But it's nice to know, I guess, isn't it? And he puts time aside, and both types of chat lead to learning. Thanks, Adam. That's a really interesting one. And Mary talks about the time a boss came to her for advice, and it showed that she was trusted and it was important.
So let's reflect. The behaviors that we are describing, are you empowered to help other people feel what you felt that day or that moment in time? I would imagine the word would be yes. The answer would be yes, but. And just sharing a personal experience for myself that I had to, in my maturity, that I had to accomplish, was to assume that people would listen and would take it as a positive if I approached them and asked them questions and wanted to know about them. Because I had been rejected so many times as a child and being brought up, that I brought that negative expectation with me. And so shifting our expectation to acceptance, to being accepted, is a big part of us being able to approach people, because I will not lie to you. Every interaction can feel like you're taking a big risk. But a leader is willing to take that risk and learn from it. And eventually, it doesn't even feel like a risk anymore. So what you've been talking about in terms of these behaviors, this is what the behaviors produce. They produce a feeling of inclusion. You're not sidelined anymore. You belong when someone takes the time to talk with you, to listen to you, and to get to know you. Equity comes about as a result, can come about as a result of the conversations. When people ask you, what do you need? What could I do to help you be more successful? The person feels a sense of equity. Autonomy is very important. Nobody likes to be micromanaged. And so when you're thinking about how you're working with employees, that's why it's so important to come in first and ask questions, rather than telling people what they are doing wrong or what they should do. Asking questions means you respect that they know what they're doing. And that's our final one, respect, which is what a lot of health and safety advisors feel that they're lacking in. And all I can say is, as I talked to many people during COVID that were going through these things, is that many of them made the decision to move on to a new job, and they found places where they were respected and they were appreciated. If you can't find that where you are, seriously consider moving on. So what is it that each one of these are tips? What is it that each of us could do when to promote respect, certainty, autonomy, recognition, appreciation, belonging, equity? It's in the everyday interactions that we have with people. I can't tell you how many times people have told me, you know, he walked by and didn't even say hello. I think he or she are mad at me. And so that starts the ball rolling of not sharing information and feeling excluded. And meanwhile, the innocent person that walked by without saying hello was all involved in something that was going on with them. But a leader is very aware of the impact they have on others around them and consciously looks at people in the eye, calls them by name, takes a moment every now and then to ask about family or what's going on or how can I help you. Thank you. In every training that I've had, I ask people to write down 1 or 2 words that they would like to hear from their manager. And the most frequent one is thank you. So is that something that we can do as health and safety advisors? Absolutely. Can we start calling people by name and looking them in the eye? Yes. These are the actions that have moved mountains, literally. There was a general manager that worked at Rio Tinto at one of the mines that was failing horribly in productivity as well as safety and quality. When he came in, he told his direct reports, do not pass anyone by without saying hello and looking at them in the eye and calling them by name. This was the intervention that changed the mine to the top performing mine. We spend a lot of time trying to figure out complicated behavior observation, HOP, event teams, which is fine. But if we're missing the pure basics of treating people with respect, treating with people with care, recognizing people's contributions, saying thank you, these other things are going to fall by the wayside. They will not substitute for this most important element in the workplace, relationships of caring. That concludes my slide presentation. I wanted to leave some time for just some open conversation. I'll stop sharing, Tim.
Well, thank you, Rosa. That's really provoked my thinking. So we've got 10 minutes left, everyone. So got with 2 things you can do. Welcome any questions that anyone has for Rosa. Just stick it in the chat. Actually, it's probably just as easy to put it in the chat rather than the Q&A. Anyone has any comments or reflections, we'd be delighted to read those out and talk about those as well. So the floor is yours, and we're happy to hear from you. Rosa, you're on mute, I think.
If there's nothing in the chat yet, what struck you?
So for me, it was that story you've just told about the mine. And I think we as safety professionals understand the risks of that industry. And to be able to change not only productivity and quality, but safety performance by such a, in a way, I was going to say simple thing, but probably the answer is it's not that simple, because doing it takes effort, right? To saying hello and calling people by the first name. But that really did provoke me to think about how I interact with my team and my colleagues and stakeholders. I think there's another comment here about someone who's felt Mark feels it's a great example of how to create a safe way for leaders to show vulnerability.
Yeah, because leaders are people too. They have their reservations about approaching people and being vulnerable.
Yeah, and another comment about how great it was, Rosa, and is a great reminder that how we act and how we are viewed really does matter.
Yeah. And I'm just curious whether there were any insights into your own superpowers, the powers that you have, even though you're not a direct, you may not have direct reports, but what is your thought on the fact that you do have influence and impact nonetheless, just by being a human being?
So let's just having a quick look at some of the other questions. We've got some really interesting points around organisations that struggle to recruit safety professionals. Could it be the location, the terms, conditions, or the salary we're putting people off, rather than actually maybe the whole industry is putting the person off, and it's the work that, and the way, as you say, that word on the screen at the moment, respect. And you are absolutely right that there's quite often times when us as professionals don't have the respect that we feel that we deserve, we ought to have, and just, yeah, it's right.
Yeah. It's not fair.
No. Another question is for you is how can we as safety professionals encourage more psychological safety in our own organizations? Apart from just what we do and our own behavior, is there something more that we can do?
It's been my observation that there's always people within the organization that support the idea of psychological safety. And we need to partner up with them. Usually they're in the organizational effectiveness group, or they might be in HR, or there might be a diversity, inclusion, belonging group in your organization, to team up with them, because maybe you guys can support each other in terms of how to promote psychological safety with the management group. At least in the US, it seems to be a really big topic. Everybody's talking about it and everybody says they want it. And as a safety professional, we could look at managers and supervisors as people that need to be supported in their psychological safety in order for them to be willing to become vulnerable. And that's the thing, you have to be willing to take a third position and say, okay, I'm not getting my needs met. How can I take care of myself so that I can reach out and help the supervisor feel psychologically safe? They need the same things that we were talking about. Are we thanking them? Are we giving them recognition? Are we acknowledging their skills, their accomplishments? And it doesn't matter if we're not their boss. That doesn't matter at all, because as human beings, we automatically have a connection emotionally with other human beings. And that's why this is so important, this whole notion of relationships and emotions being the true drivers of organizational performance.
Thank you. Just a couple more comments. One is a great one. Listening is a skill that should be taught in every safety leadership seminar, as it makes a difference. Oh, here's a question I probably wouldn't have had 5 years ago. Do you think social media has an impact on psychological safety? It seems that people move from face-to-face conversation now to screen to screen.
There's nothing safe, psychologically safe about social media. Nope, you never know. I mean, you can put the most, you think it's a very innocent comment, and somebody can pile something on top of you. So every social interaction that we have in our unconscious, we view it as taking a risk. Now, the better we know someone and the more we trust them, the more we will be ourselves, be authentic, especially if we think, well, if I I know if I overstep my boundary here, I'll be able to recover. The person will forgive me. We'll be able to have a conversation about it and get over it. But how many people do we have in our lives like that? Not many. So for the most part, the health and safety advisor needs to become aware that the social interaction process has to be anchored in psychological safety in your dealings with others. And the more you do that, the better the relationships that you will form around you, and the more psychologically safe you will feel. We really create our own psychological safety in the end. Even though our bosses and the people around us contribute, in the end, if we don't have it within ourselves, we are not going to be able to take the risks that we need to take in order to move safety forward.
I think, Rosa, that's just a fantastic way of finishing today's session. And on behalf of everyone on this call, we're not in a room, we're not in a physical room, so the round of applause won't be quite as audible as it would be, but I think all of us are delighted to have had the chance to listen to you today and interact. I think the interaction in the session was really really great. So thank you very much indeed. And there are a lot of clapping hands and hearts flying across the screen as we speak. So,
I'm feeling recognized. I'm feeling psychologically safe.
oh, and a thumbs up and a party popper, you name it. It's good. It's good. In the last, just before I leave you, and obviously I did speak very earlier on about our foundation, our charity, the movement. Please, where you can, support us. If you haven't bought the book and you were interested in doing so, jump on our website and buy our book. Join the movement. Just there's an opportunity for you to pledge and to be part of our 1% Safer movement. And of course, if you think yourself or anyone you know would benefit from some of the financial support that we as a foundation provide, then there's an opportunity on our website for you to make an application. And then I'll just finally finish by obviously thanking those people who provided financial support for us to be able to host this session today and the rest of the week. So thank you again to our partners, Quentic, Cority, Eco Online and Saferpedia. Thank you all very much for your time. It's been a fantastic hour. Thank you again, Rosa. This recording will be made available after this week for people to go back or to share with your colleagues. I'll certainly be sharing it with colleagues of mine as well. So with that, I will say thank you to everyone. I will close the webinar and speak to you, hopefully, speak to some of you soon. And Rosa, again, I know you want to thank everyone for being on the call.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.